It's time for NCW Life News on the NCW Life channel. The latest from the Wenatchee Valley and North Central Washington with Steve Hare, Grant Olson, and sports with Eric Granstrom.
Good evening and welcome to NCW Life News. I'm Grant Olson. Before we get to today's top stories, let's take a look outside our weather window, and we are seeing another smoke-filled day around the Wenatchee Valley. Here's a shot looking down at the George Seller Bridge and footbridge. You can see the traffic going by. Not quite as smoky today, I don't think, as we've seen the past couple of days, but this smoke is going to stick around, and I'll talk about how long we can expect the smoke and how long we can expect these hot temperatures, all coming up in your weather forecast a little bit later on in the broadcast. And now a few of the stories we're following for you tonight. Wenatchee's Steve King testifies before the U.S. Senate Committee on Wildfire Technology. A wildland firefighter dies in Montana, and an unusual accident occurs on Easy Street yesterday afternoon. Later on, we'll have sports, your weather forecast, and our feature story today. But first, and in breaking news, there was a two-alarm brush fire reported earlier today, burning on State Route 17 between Leahy Junction and Bridgeport. That road was temporarily closed as fire crews fought that fire. We will have more information on that as it becomes available. Well, it's been over a week now since Wenatchee police officer Albert Gonzalez shot and killed Matthew Folden during a confrontation outside the local Albertsons grocery store. A special investigation unit headed up by the Chelan County Sheriff's Department continues its probe to determine if the lethal use of force was justified. SIU spokesman Captain Edgar Reinfeld commented on the investigation with Steve Hare on today's Wake Up Wenatchee Valley program.
Well, we're living in a new age, the social media age, and certainly that has played a role here in the investigation. Maybe you can tell us to what extent the social media plays.
So social media is a double-edged sword in many ways. We've certainly noted and used our social media thing to push a variety of press releases over the course of the year when we've had major incidents. Some tragic, some interesting, some borderline entertaining, and of course to promote community events. So we've done it for all of that. This is the first homicide, effectively, or major incident where someone ended up dead, where we have used it to push out the material. And so the interesting thing is you push out the press releases. Many people have agendas. Everyone has opinions. Some people have several opinions, and they just start flooding in. And the goal with the social media is to be informative, to be transparent, to maintain and develop that sense of public trust that we're telling you what we can tell you right now, and we're giving it to you directly through the media outlets, through everybody, and then you get feedback. And the interesting thing is the quantity and quality of the feedback that comes. And it's also an appeal. We've used it as a tool to appeal for more witnesses, for people with video or photos to come forward and bring us that side.
And that was the next question I had for you, Captain Edgar Reinfeld with the Special Investigative Unit that's investigating this shooting. Numerous people, as I understand, were at the scene of the shooting that night. How many interviews have been conducted so far? I mean, how many people have you talked to? And how consistent has have the statements been?
So throughout this, I think we're well over 20 people now that have been interviewed. There were a number of people present at the scene before and during, and then a lot more arrived after. People heard about it and immediately fled to the area and are up around the perimeter watching. It is something to see. I will agree, watching the crime scene team do their work is strangely interesting and boring at the same time because so much of it is so slow. But I would say we've interviewed over 20 people. As far as consistency, everyone's point of view is a little bit different. We see an arc of consistency that is continuous through all the interviews, but to go and say that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy all saw exactly the same thing isn't really possible. We have a consistent story that's been achieved across the interviews, but the detail differs so much from person to person, and a lot of it's point of view. We have witnesses that were as far away as 800 feet that saw and heard something. We have witnesses that were as close as probably 100 feet, but had things between them and the scene. So everybody's point of view, and this is always the case when you interview a large number of witnesses, the interesting thing here is we don't have, as far as I know, any real outliers in the interviews. Occasionally, when you interview a large group of witnesses, you'll have this very consistent arc and everything looks pretty squared away. and then you'll find the one person who saw something completely different. And it's difficult to reconcile with everything else.
I think a lot of the inconsistencies we're seeing so far, at least in terms of the social media comments that are being shared with us, has to do with the weapon, or whether or not the man was even armed at the time that he was shot. In your news release, you have stated that a knife was found at the scene, correct?
Yes, the knife was recovered right there.
Do we know what kind of a knife?
We do, but we're not commenting yet.
Depending on the findings of your investigation, would that be passed along to the prosecutor's office, or just where does it go from there?
So this initial wave is the criminal phase, and it is all about were the actions of the officer lawful. Yes, Chelan County Sheriff's Office, Chelan County's prosecutor's office, prosecuting attorney Doug Shea, will be getting all of this package, and they will make the determination whether the officer's actions lawful. When that criminal phase is done and that determination has been made, our own internal investigation then occurs. The actual investigation is kind of concurrent. They're able to look at material as it comes by. But the final determinations and the final steps are not made until after determination of lawful or not. And then we go into was it within policy and procedure. And so there's really two steps for the officer involved and for the department itself. Prosecutor looking at was it a crime? Internal systems looking at what policies complied with as a disciplinary matter.
Reinfeld also put out a call for more witness information, and he urges people to call the Chelan County Sheriff's Crime Tip Line, and that's 667-6845. You can find more information about the shooting, including our full interview with Captain Reinfeld, on ncwlife.com. Coming up, Wenatchee's Steve King testifies before the U.S. Senate Committee on Wildfire Technology. A wildland firefighter dies in Montana, and an unusual accident occurs on Easy Street yesterday afternoon. I'm Grant Olson, and you're watching NCW Life News.
Get the fastest internet available in North Central Washington by switching to LocalTel and get speeds up to 1,000 meg. Call 888-8888 today or go online to localtel.net.
Wenatchee's Director of Community Development was in Washington, D.C. Thursday to testify before a U.S. Senate committee. Steve King was invited by Ranking Committee member Senator Maria Cantwell to participate in a hearing on the topic of wildfires and how the use of better technology can improve the way fires are fought and prevented. King explained how he's created wildfire risk maps to change city codes for development in wildland-urban interface areas.
Risk mapping lets you simulate a disaster without actually having to go through the disaster. It lets us it informs us on how to implement our codes, our wildland urban interface codes. It tells us the effectiveness of risk reduction strategies such as vegetation management. It provides us information on how to protect critical infrastructure like water systems or communication systems. And then the technology is changing and will continue to change. For example, there's a lot of studies being done right now on ember transport, especially from structures. And so risk mapping ultimately will incorporate those that new science and technologies to help us grow as the science becomes available.
King said after developing a risk map for the areas around Wenatchee following the 2015 Sleepy Hollow fire, local fire agencies are now working on a comprehensive risk map for Chelan County. King's testimony was in support of an effort by Senator Cantwell to pass legislation to give firefighters access to new technology. Chief Tom Tidwell reports a firefighter was killed recently while fighting the Lolo Peak fire in western Montana. 29-year-old Brent Whittam of the Vista Grand Interagency Hotshot Crew on the San Bernardino National Forest in California died on the fire line after being struck by a tree. Tidwell says the death comes at a time when the Forest Service experiences a significant outbreak of wildfires in the west as a result of high temperatures and lightning. He said the agency expects these outbreaks to continue over the coming weeks. Many other crews and supporting personnel will be deployed to respond. Tidwell stresses safety must remain paramount as we confront this severe wildfire season. An unusual accident yesterday afternoon in the 100 block of Easy Street in front of Cascade Auto Center. The car, a 1962 Studebaker coupe, landed on its roof as it came off the car hauler during unloading. The center lane was blocked for at least 30 minutes. The transport truck was taking the classic car from Oregon to New York. There were no major injuries involved in that accident. You're watching NCW Life News. Coming up next, Eric Granstrom has your sports update, followed by our feature story today. That and much more still to come on NCW Life News. Stay with us.
Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today. And now it's a sports update on the NCW Life channel.
And a happy finally Friday. The Apple Sox have garnered a reputation this season for late inning comebacks, and such was the case in Game 1 against the Knights in Corvallis yesterday in the front end of a doubleheader. Wenatchee scored 6 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning to defeat Corvallis 10-7. The Sox started the comeback with 3 walks to load the bases, and out later Adrian Vela slapped a 2-run single to right field to make it 7-6. Adrian Domla then singled to right to score Evan Johnson to tie the game at 7. Then Jake Taylor stepped up and with a full count cranked a 3-run walk-off home run to give Wenatchee a 10-7 victory. Now the game was moved to Corvallis because of the smoke in Central Washington, and per league rule becomes a 7-inning contest when there's a doubleheader. And since the games were supposed to be played in Wenatchee, the Apple Sox were the home team even though it was in Corvallis. For the moment, the Sox held first place all alone in the North Division, but then came the nightcap. The Knights scored 2 in the first, 3 in the second before Wenatchee could even get their shoes on. Corvallis led 6-0 heading into the Sox last at bat in the 7th. Wenatchee tried to come back again. Jacob Prater's 2-run double with 1 out made it 6-2. Adrian Domla hit a ground rule double and out later to make it 6-3. But unlike Game 1, Jake Taylor struck out to end the ball game, Corvallis on top. Wenatchee now heads to Bellingham for a 3-game series with the Bells to wrap up the regular season. So when it was all said and done, Wenatchee remained tied with Victoria for first in the second half North Division standings. So there you have the standings. Wenatchee 13-10, Victoria 14-11. That's a 565 versus 560 winning ratio, so basically a virtual tie. Bellingham, very importantly, just a half game back. Also in the West Coast League last night, just one game to tell you about. Cowlitz down to Yakima Valley 8-1. Preston Jones was 3 for 4 with 3 RBI for the Black Bears as Cowlitz remains a half game back of Corvallis in the Southern Division standings. Boy, that was something else. Port Angeles aggression, by the way, postponed due to poor air quality. Well, coming up this weekend, big racing weekend at Wenatchee Valley's Super Oval featuring the Pro Late models, the Vintage Modifieds, Pro 4 trucks, street stocks, and Thunder cars. Gates open Saturday at 5. The racing starts at 6 o'clock. Brandon Moss belted a pair of home runs, and LaRosa Kane logged the go-ahead RBI single in a pivotal 2-run 7th inning as Kansas City snapped a 3-game losing streak, downing the Mariners 6-4 Thursday. Seattle blew an opportunity to make up ground in the chase for the wild card. New York lost to Cleveland 5-1, and the Royals were in the second wild card spot heading into last night's game. With the loss, the Mariners remain 2.5 games back. With the game tied at 3, Arcides Escobar led off the 7th with a single, and Alex Gordon delivered just his 7th career sacrifice bunt after an error. Kane and Cabrera followed with opposite field singles off Mariners rookie reliever Emilio Pagan to give the Royals a 5-3 lead. Seattle got solo home runs from Kyle Seager and Danny Valencia, but couldn't add enough to hold off Kansas City. Manager Scott Service said the game felt good early.
We were in a pretty good spot. Garda was pretty good, really good, through, outside the home run he gave up through 5 innings or right there, had to lead the ball game. The back-to-back walks on 9 pitches, starting off the 6 is not a good thing, but I thought Zepp came in through the ball really well. We got the double play ball, and, the ground ball at Moustakas, he hit in the right spot. That happens. And, we had some chances. Kind of needed that big 2-out hit, earlier in the game, like you said, to kind of take a more commanding lead in that game. I felt the momentum was on our side, but you look up at the scoreboard and it was still 2-0, and then they quickly tie it, with one swing of the bat. So, had chances. You kind of need that, like I said, the big 2-out hit to get you over the hump there and stretch out the lead a little bit. We didn't get that tonight.
Seattle and Kansas City are playing the second of the 4-game series tonight. James Paxton going up against Jason Hamill. Emilio Pagan gave up 3 runs on 4 hits to take the loss. Service said was asked about sticking with Rachimsky rather than Pagan a little bit longer.
We had talked about it leading into that. If we had the lead, it might have been a little bit different, but we didn't. Moustakas hits the ball through the infield. Seager comes up in the next situation, or same situation almost, and hits a one hopper right at their guy. So things like that, plays like that, they play out big in the game. But Pagan's done a really nice job for us. He's been one of our hottest guys in the bullpen. So thought we'd go to him tonight, just didn't quite get it done.
Also in the American League West last night, it was Tampa Bay downing Houston 5-3. Texas got by Minnesota 4-1. The Angels beat the Phillies 5-4, and San Francisco all over Oakland in a battle of the Bay 11-2 the final. Houston still in top of the standings. Seattle at 55-55, now two and a half games back in the wild card race. That's a look at sports news on the NCW Life Channel. I'm Eric Grandstrom. Have a great weekend. Grant, back to you.
Thank you, Eric. Well, it will be a busy day at the newly remodeled Columbia Valley Community Health Wenatchee Clinic as the 4th annual Back to School Health Fair gives 1,000 students free back-to-school supplies. CVCH's Catherine Groves stopped by Wake Up Wenatchee Valley with Dan Coons to talk more about the big event.
Tomorrow's our Back to School Health Fair, and it's undoubtedly our just most fun event of the year.
It is the most fun of it. It's, as you mentioned before, it's Christmas. When I was on the United Way Board of Directors, we were heavily involved in this, of course, and we came every year. This is a big event. Tell people what exactly to expect tomorrow.
So tomorrow we will have 1,000 backpacks and school supplies. The NCESD partners with us and provides the school supplies. And then we have an array of just awesome sponsors that have made it possible for us to be able to give backpacks away to kids ages K through 12. And every year it gets bigger and bigger. This is our 9th year doing it. Last year we had 2,000 people in attendance. We gave away, I think, 833 backpacks, and so we just bumped it up to 1,000 this year because it just keeps growing.
You said 2,000 people showed up last year?
Yeah, with kids and parents. Yeah. Because it's a whole, the community comes together. We actually go into the schoolyard and we do a bouncy house, and they can learn about the services we provide, but also our partners, community partners.
For the kids who are going to benefit this from the backpack, by the way, the backpacks are really nice. These are not Chinese-made knockoffs. These are nice backpacks.
Yeah, no, our goal is to give something that's quality, that's going to last the school year. We know that kids are going to beat them up and they're going to get tossed on the floor, and so yeah, they are nice backpacks.
But the kids have to be there to get them, correct?
Yes, yeah. So kids have to be present to get one. What happens is generally, even an hour before, people kind of start getting in a line, and we put wristbands on the children depending on what age group they're in. And this year, since our building is finally done, we're going to have a community open house. So they'll literally come through our front doors and receive their backpack, and they'll get a short tour out of the building. And then head over to the schoolyard, and that's where they'll get their school supplies. And we do a raffle where, different people have donated things. The Wenatchee Valley Mall gave, gift certificates and just a ton of great stuff to give away. Normally they had to be present to win. And just with the smoke outside, we've been asked, when are you going to still have your event? Yes. The show still goes on, so we're going to have our event. But you don't have to be present to win any of the raffles. We'll announce that on our Facebook.
We'll be back in just a moment with a recap of today's stories and your complete local weather forecast right after this. Is your vehicle in need of a quick oil change or tune-up before hitting the road this summer? Stop by Quick Lube and Tune, the home of the good guys at 610 South Wenatchee Avenue. And now in other news around our area, Governor Jay Inslee has named Cheryl Strange Secretary of the Department of Social and Health Services. Strange has served as Chief Executive Officer of Western State Hospital since April of 2016. Prior to that, Strange was the Assistant Director for the DSHS Mental Health Division, where she managed the state's public mental health system, including the state's 3 hospitals and community outpatient mental health services. Strange replaces acting DSHS Secretary Bill Moss. Well, the Wenatchee Youth Circus will take over Walla Walla Point Park this weekend with a breathtaking show for residents. NCW Life's Jay Seebeck learned more about the show on the NCW magazine.
Talk about August 4th when you guys start.
Yes, we're going to be coming to Walla Walla Park. We have 2 shows on Friday the 4th. It is 10:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. We'll be showing the 10:30 a.m. is our dollar show. Okay. So if you want the cheap show, come to that.
Sure.
And it will still be good.
Yeah.
And then 7:30 p.m. on Friday, then 7:30 p.m. again on Saturday the 5th. And then on Sunday the 6th, we have a 10:30 a.m. matinee, and then we close it up and go back home.
For more on the Youth Circus, stay tuned to the NCW Life channel for the full NCW magazine. Time now for our weather forecast, your weather forecast, and I'll tell you what, once again out our weather window, now you can't see George Seller Bridge or the walking bridge as smoke continues to funnel into the Wenatchee Valley. I think the hardest hit areas for smoke today, Omak down into Moses Lake, but we are seeing plenty of it as well, and we will continue to see that too. The heat will continue with temperatures in the 90s to locally near 100 degrees today. A weak cold front late today will bring locally breezy conditions into Saturday, but very warm temperatures will continue into early next week. Wildfire smoke will persist throughout the weekend and into the middle of next week as smoke from wildfires in British Columbia and Montana remain trapped under a very large area of high pressure. You can see on our surface map winds coming straight down the coast from the north, and notice British Columbia, the wind direction. The arrows pointed right down here into the Wenatchee area, and that's what we will continue to see with hot, dry weather through the weekend and into early next week. Let's take a look at your forecast now. We can expect mild overnight lows once again tonight, with lows dropping down to about 72 degrees as we kick off your weekend on Saturday. Still warm, 99 for both Saturday and Sunday. Widespread smoke throughout our forecast period. Lows in the lower to mid 70s and all the way up to 102 degrees by Tuesday of next week. Well, last night was the final show of the RLS Productions concert in the Omi Garden series with the Infinity Project, a Journey cover band closing out the show. Here's a clip from their performance. If you have a video of the day you'd like to see on NCW Life News, message us on our Facebook page at the NCW Life channel. And that's going to do it for our newscast tonight. For more on these stories and other news from around North Central Washington, you can find us on Facebook or our website at ncwlife.com. And remember, if you see news happening, we'd like to hear from you. You can send us an email at news@ncwlife.com or give us a call at 888-6295. I'm Grant Olson. Thanks for joining us and have a great weekend.
This has been NCW Life News on the NCW Life channel. For more news, log on to ncwlife.com, like us on Facebook, and follow NCW Life channel on Twitter.
Have a fun video you'd like to see featured on NCW Life? Email us at newsphotos@ncwlife.com.